My name is Renata Richter. I am 71 years old. And 1 week ago, I learned the most painful truth a mother can face. The child I raised with love never saw me as family. He saw me as a bank account. It happened with one sentence. I asked my son, with joy in my voice, "So, when is the wedding?" His wife smiled and said, "We got married yesterday. Only special people were invited." Special people. For 3 years, I paid their rent. I bought their furniture. I paid their bills. I even bought her wedding dress. And they got married behind my back. And decided I wasn't special enough to be there. That night, I opened my old notebook and added every dollar I spent on them. $33,400. That was the price of being their mother. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't loved. I was funding their lifestyle. Tomorrow, I decided everything would change. This is the story of how I lost my son and found myself. My name is Renata Richter, and I am 71 years old. People imagine old age as peaceful, slow mornings, warm soups, quiet afternoons with a book resting gently in your lap. But old age is not quiet. Not inside. It is loud with memories. Every decision echoes. Every sacrifice you made returns like a whisper in the dark. Every smile you bought with your kindness sits somewhere in your mind like an unpaid debt. In my mind, I am still 40. I still see myself wiping cake from my son's mouth on his 6th birthday. I still feel the weight of my husband's hand on mine when we signed the papers for our first home. I still remember the way Max ran to the door whenever his father came home, shouting "Papa," like the world itself arrived with that word. But memories age, too. They soften, blur, sometimes even lie. I often wonder if love is just a long story we tell ourselves, one where we forget the chapters that hurt. It was a Tuesday morning when everything broke. I remember the light from the window was golden, catching dust in the air like tiny falling stars. I had made tea, Earl Grey, 2 sugars, and I was looking at a photo of my son Max and his girlfriend, Lena, on my phone screen. Their faces were close together. She was smiling wide, the kind of smile that looks like victory. That photo gave me happiness. They had been engaged for 3 months, but they had never given me the date of the wedding. "Soon, Mama," Max kept saying. "We're planning," Lena would add. That morning, something in me was filled with hope. Like a child waiting for a present. I called Max, holding the phone with both hands the way older people do, not because our hands are weak, but because the moment feels fragile. He didn't pick up. Instead, Lena answered. There was noise in the background, music, laughter, glasses clinking, people talking over each other. It sounded like a celebration. My heart lifted. Before she even said hello, I asked the question I had rehearsed 100 times in my head. "So, when is the wedding?" My voice was soft, excited, almost shy, as if asking permission to be happy. Lena's answer was a smile wrapped in a knife. "Oh, Renata," she laughed lightly. "We actually got married yesterday." Time stopped. "Yesterday?" I repeated. She sounded casual, as if she was announcing a change in the weather. "Yes," she said. "It was very small. Only special people were invited. Just a private thing with the closest ones. Only special people." The words hit me like cold water spilled down my spine. I didn't know what to say. The air felt heavy. In the background, I heard people cheering, toasting glasses, celebrating a moment I wasn't allowed to witness. I could hear Max's voice, laughing, talking to someone. He didn't even come to the phone. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, hoping maybe she would say something else, something that would make it hurt less. But all she said was, "We'll send pictures. Not we're sorry. Not we missed you. Just pictures." They wanted me to see the wedding the way strangers do, through a screen. I whispered, "Congratulations," in a voice that didn't feel like mine. "Thank you," she sang back. "Okay, we're heading out. Talk soon." The call ended. Just like that. A door closing without a sound. I stared at the phone, seeing my reflection on the black screen. An old woman looking back at me, eyes wide, tea forgotten, smile gone. The silence in my kitchen grew loud. The clock ticked like a hammer. I didn't cry immediately. Shock is dry. It doesn't allow tears. I sat very still, teacup in hand, feeling the heat of the cup fading slowly until it grew cold. My hands never moved. Flashback, the beginning of everything. When Max was 10, he came home one day with a scraped elbow. A kid had pushed him at school. He was angry, crying. I held him close and said, "People hurt us sometimes because they don't remember the times we helped them." He sniffed and asked, "Why do we help them then?" I kissed his forehead and said the line I believed with all my heart. Because kindness always comes back. I don't know when that belief started dying. Maybe the day Albert died. Maybe the day Max stopped calling me Mama and began calling me Renata to sound grown up. Maybe the day he met Lena and learned that love can be taken, not earned. Looking at my life through numbers. That night, after the call, I couldn't sleep. The house felt unfamiliar, like it had shifted slightly under my feet. The wedding that I dreamed about, imagined in details, was suddenly gone. I had pictured myself walking in, proud and fragile, wearing the dress I bought secretly, waiting to see my son smile at me. Instead, the celebration happened without me. At midnight, I stood up, turned on the lamp, and opened the drawer where I kept an old leather notebook. It is brown, worn at the edges. The pages smell like time. Inside it, I write every expense. Not because I'm controlling, but because after Albert died, managing money was a mountain I climbed alone. I opened to the last page and started calculating. 2020. January, $500 rent. February, $500 rent. March, $300 groceries. April, $730 laptop. 2021. May, $2,100 furniture. June, $540 dental emergency. July, $200 gas. October, $750 car repairs. 2022. June, $980 new computer for Max's work. November, $760 wedding dress for Lena. December, $500 rent. Line after line. My pencil scribbled and shook. When I reached the total, my heart didn't break, it went silent. $33,400. $33,400. More money than I spent on myself in 5 years. More money than I had spent on vacations, health, hobbies, on my own life. And for what? To be told I was not special. The word repeated in my mind like a cruel echo. Special. Who decides who is special? Is it love? Is it effort? Is it money? Or is it something colder? Who gets counted as family? Who gets invited to the table? Who gets excluded? I closed the notebook slowly. For the first time, I saw the truth clearly. I wasn't a mother to them. I was funding their dreams. They built a house of comfort with my sacrifices, and left me outside the door. The moment something changed. I didn't cry that night. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because the pain turned into something sharper. Clarity. When love becomes currency, it is no longer love. I whispered into the empty room. No more. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the quiet sound of a woman who finally chooses herself. And that is where everything began to change. Tomorrow, I decided, everything will be different. Even if it hurts. Even if it means starting alone. Sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to let go of the people who drown you while calling it love. Sleep did not come easily after that night. It arrived like a thief, late, light, and untrustworthy. I kept waking, as if my mind refused to rest until something in my life had been corrected. When dawn finally entered my curtains, pale and shy, I sat up in bed feeling older than I did the night before, older not in body, but in truth. There are nights that change people. Nights when illusions die quietly in the dark. This was one of those nights. I dressed slowly, feeling each movement as if it belonged to someone else. I put on my long wool coat, the one Max once said made me look too proper, whatever that means in a world where respect is considered old-fashioned. On the way out, my eyes stopped on the photo wall. A mosaic of his life. Max at 6, holding a melting ice cream cone. Max at 12, holding a trophy half his size. Max at 16, wearing his father's suit on the day of the funeral. In that photo, he looks lost, eyes red, jaw trembling. I remember hugging him, feeling his bones shake with grief. He held me so tightly, as if I was the only thing keeping him on earth. I told him, I will protect you. Maybe I kept that promise too well. The walk to the bank. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet only small towns can offer, where you know every pothole, every cat on every porch, every old man who sits by the newspaper stand pretending he isn't people watching. On Maple Street, I passed the bakery. The smell of fresh bread spilled into the air, warm and comforting. Once, when Max was 8, he tried to steal a croissant from there. The owner, Klaus, caught him, but instead of scolding, he gave Max the pastry and told him to remember that real bread tastes better when it's earned. I smiled at the memory, then felt it break like a fragile glass. Memory can be cruel, because it shows you the gap between who someone was and who they became. At Main Avenue, I crossed the street and pushed open the glass door of the bank. A chime sounded, soft and welcoming. "Good morning, Mrs. Richter," said the young woman at the front desk. Her name is Hannah. She is kind, efficient, with a smile that hides her own struggles. "Good morning," I replied. "How can I help you today?" I placed my ID and bank card on the counter. My voice was steady, more steady than I felt. "I want to cancel all automatic transfers to my son's account," I said. "And I want to secure my savings." She didn't react with judgment or curiosity. She simply nodded with a softness that felt like someone placing a blanket over your shoulders. "Of course," she said. "Are you sure?" The question was procedural, but it pierced deeply. "Yes," I answered. "I am very sure." She typed quickly, gently explaining each step. "This will stop the monthly rent transfer. This will protect your account from third-party access. This sets a security alert if anyone tries to request power of attorney without you present. And here is your new PIN. Only you know this number." Her professionalism was comforting, but her eyes held something else, concern, maybe recognition. Perhaps she had seen this before. Perhaps too many elderly parents come to the bank alone, asking to protect what they spent a lifetime earning. When all the papers were signed, she handed me a copy. "Everything is secure now," she said softly. Secure. The word tasted bittersweet. I thanked her and walked toward the exit. Before I left, she called gently, almost in a whisper. "If you ever need help with anything, you can come to me." It was the kind of kindness that doesn't ask questions. The kind that understands pain without needing details. Back at home. The house felt different when I entered. Not new, but rearranged by the truth. I walked slowly to the kitchen and placed the papers on the table. For a long moment, I just stared at them. It's strange how simple forms can represent something enormous. Freedom. Distance. Separation. Ending a toxic pattern doesn't look dramatic. It looks like signatures on paper. I made tea, Earl Grey, 2 sugars, and sat by the window, watching the street. An older man passed by walking his dog. 2 teenagers laughed at jokes I couldn't hear. A mother pushed a stroller while talking on her phone. Life continued while my world was breaking. That is the worst part of pain, how little the world notices it. I opened the notebook again, not to count, but to understand. Why did I pay so much? Why did I never say no? Why did I believe that giving more would bring me closer to my son? I wrote a sentence on a blank page. Why did I give so much? My hand hovered. Then, like a confession finally allowed to breathe, I wrote the truth. Because I was lonely. Loneliness is invisible. You don't see it in photos. It isn't loud like anger. It is quiet like snow falling at night. After Albert died, the house became a museum of memories. His coat still hung behind the door for 6 months. His slippers waited beside the bed for a year. His toothbrush stayed in the cabinet until it faded from blue to pale. The silence was heavy. I lived with absence. And Max, my only child, was my link to life. Every time he needed me, it made me feel like I was still necessary. Like my existence mattered. So I paid bills. I bought furniture. I became the emergency fund, the safety net, the solution. Not because I was generous, but because I needed to be needed. And that is the most dangerous need of all. Because the person you help stops seeing you as a mother. They see you as a service. Not out of cruelty, but because you taught them that your love comes with no boundaries. And love without boundaries is not love. It is self-erasure. The moment strength arrives. That afternoon, sitting in the quiet kitchen, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Strength. A quiet strength that comes after the tears have dried, after the heart has broken, after the truth has burned away the illusions. I closed the notebook and whispered into the room. No more. It was a soft voice, but it carried decades of silence behind it. Tomorrow, I decided, I will face them. Not as a mother begging for affection, but as a woman defending her dignity. I put the notebook back into the drawer, locked it, and placed the key inside my pocket. For the first time in years, I felt like the owner of my life. The fracture begins. That night, I slept early. Exhaustion from emotional clarity hits harder than physical work. Around midnight, I woke to a sound. Metal. A key turning in my front door. My heart froze. Footsteps. Low voices. Whispers. Someone walked into my home. My home. I sat up, pulse pounding like a drum. And that was the moment I understood. Taking back your power invites a war. They hadn't come to apologize. They had come to reclaim what they believed was theirs. But my life was not theirs to take. Not anymore. There are moments in life when the quiet becomes threatening. When shadows inside your own home feel unfamiliar. When a noise that should feel normal, like keys turning, is suddenly the sound of danger. It happened just past midnight. I was sleeping lightly, the kind of shallow sleep that comes after a day of emotional exhaustion. A sleep where your dreams stay close, like restless thoughts whispering under your eyelids. Then, metal scraping the lock. My eyes opened instantly. At this age, your body moves slower, but your mind doesn't. Fear travels faster than blood. For a second, I thought I was imagining it, maybe a memory waking me. But then I heard it clearly. The lock turning, deliberate, certain. Someone was inside my house. My house. A surge of adrenaline pushed me upright. My heart was pounding in my ears as if it wanted out. I slipped on my robe, tied the belt with shaking hands, and stepped into the hallway. The floor was cold on my bare feet. The living room light was on. I hadn't left it that way. Voices. Low, tense. As I turned the corner, I saw them. Max. Lena. And someone else, a man in a dark suit holding a leather briefcase. For a moment, it didn't feel real. Like a nightmare sculpted from memories. Max stood near the sofa, arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face was set like stone, but his eyes flickered the way they used to when he lied as a child. Lena stood beside him, clutching a folder like it was proof of something important. Her hair was perfect, makeup flawless, strangely formal for midnight. The third man stepped forward slightly. He was tall, with an expression that tried to imitate sympathy but failed. I spoke first. My voice was fragile with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Max exhaled through his nose, irritated. "Mom, we need to talk." Talk. People don't talk at midnight by using stolen keys. "How did you get a key?" I asked, voice low. He didn't answer. Lena gave a little sigh. Max was worried. "You stopped answering calls." I had missed no calls. This was manipulation, not concern. The man in the suit stepped forward and extended a hand, as if we were meeting for coffee. "Mrs. Richter, I'm attorney Martin Kraus. I represent your son and daughter-in-law." Represent. Such a tidy word for intrusion. I didn't take his hand. Instead, I looked at Max. "Why are you here?" He turned his gaze away, jaw tightening. Lena stepped in, her voice soft, soaked in artificial sweetness. "Mom, we've been noticing things. You've been forgetful lately. Confused about dates, money. We're concerned." Concerned. That word again. Not concerned enough to invite me to the wedding. But very concerned now that the money stopped. The lawyer opened his folder and laid papers on my coffee table as if he owned the room. "These documents establish a power of attorney for your finances and property. It's standard procedure for someone of your age who may be experiencing cognitive decline." Cognitive decline. They were painting me as a confused old woman. A child in an aging body. Max finally spoke, sharp, defensive. "Mom, we're trying to protect you." Protect me? They were trying to legally take my house, my savings, my life. I felt anger rise, not hot and chaotic, but cold and perfectly clear. A kind of anger that knows exactly what it is. I walked slowly to the table, looking at the papers. Legal phrases, lines of authority, signatures already filled in, except mine. They came prepared. This wasn't a discussion. It was an ambush. Lena's voice came again, condescending like honey hiding a knife. All you need to do is sign. It's for your own safety. My own safety. 3 years of monthly rent. 3 years of bills. 3 years of buying peace and calling it love. And now, safety. My hands didn't tremble when I touched the document. I lifted it, feeling the weight of an entire betrayal in one thin sheet of paper. Then, without looking away from my son's eyes, I tore it down the middle. The paper split cleanly, like the bond between us. The room froze. Lena gasped softly, as if offended by the destruction of her plan. Max stepped forward, anger breaking through his controlled expression. "Mom, what are you doing?" I met his gaze, steady. "I am protecting myself." The lawyer recovered first, gathering his composure like spilled cards. "Mrs. Richter, this is unwise. Your son has legal rights." "No," I cut him off. "He does not have rights over my life." My voice was calm. So calm it surprised even me. Max's voice cracked with frustration. "You're not thinking straight. You need help." "I needed help years ago," I replied quietly, "but you didn't come." He flinched. Just a flicker, but I saw it. For a moment, a part of him understood what I meant. For a second, he remembered a mother who stood between him and the world like a shield. But the moment died quickly, replaced by pride. Lena stepped close, eyes sharp. "You'll regret this, Renata." There was no mom. Not even Mrs. Richter. Just my first name, stripped of relationship, stripped of respect. I pointed to the door. "Both of you. Leave." The lawyer began to protest, but Max grabbed his jacket. "Let's go." The anger in his voice wasn't from concern, it was from defeat. They walked out together, leaving the door open behind them, as if to show contempt. I slowly walked over and closed it gently. Then, the silence returned. But it was different from before. Before, silence was loneliness. Now, silence was dignity. I stood there, listening to my own breath, my heart slowing down. Then, finally, I allowed myself to cry, not because I lost them, but because I finally saw the truth clearly. Love without respect is dependency. Dependency without gratitude is abuse. And abuse doesn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looks like a wedding you are not invited to. The aftermath. I sat on the edge of my bed until morning light returned. The first rays of sunlight fell across the floor like golden threads, weaving new shapes. Something in me had changed forever. Yesterday, I was a mother willing to give everything to be loved. Tonight, I became a woman willing to lose everything to be free. I whispered to myself, with a voice that held both grief and strength. It ends now. Tomorrow would not be easy. There would be retaliation. People who take advantage never accept boundaries quietly. But tomorrow, I would be ready. Because power isn't in money, or strength, or age. Power is in choosing yourself. And for the first time since Albert died, I chose me. The day after the break-in was unnaturally quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, where the world feels gentle and far away. This was the kind of quiet that comes before a storm, when the air feels thick and the birds fall silent. I woke late, my body heavy from the night's emotions. For a moment, I forgot what had happened. I simply lay there, listening to the ticking clock, the faint sound of a car passing, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then it came back, piece by piece. The key in the lock. The lawyer. The papers. My son's angry face. I sat up slowly. There are some truths that, once seen, can never be unseen. Max and Lena had not just hurt me emotionally. They had planned to erase me legally. I dressed, made tea, and tried to do ordinary things, watering plants, straightening cushions, opening the window for air. But every sound made me jump. The world outside my window moved on as if nothing had changed. A child rode his bicycle down the street, wobbling dangerously close to the curb. A mail carrier pushed letters through slots with mechanical rhythm. A neighbor across the road shook dust from a rug. Normal life. Inside, I felt like I had walked out of my own skin. The first call. Around 10 a.m., the phone rang. For a moment I just stared at it, my hand hovering. I already knew who it was. I answered. Hello? Mom. It was Max. My heart squeezed. The word mom still had power, even when spoken by someone who had tried to trap me hours earlier. Yes. I replied, keeping my voice neutral. He sighed, long and theatrical. Why are you doing this? There it was. Not are you okay? Not can we talk? Just, why are you making this difficult for us? Doing what? I asked calmly. Acting like this, he said. You're pushing us away. We came to help you, and you tore up legal documents like a child. Do you know how embarrassing that was? For me? In front of my lawyer? The way he said embarrassing made it clear. What mattered most to him was not my safety, but his reputation. Max, I said softly, you broke into my home with a lawyer and papers that would give you control of everything I own. That is not help. You're overreacting, he snapped. It was for your own good. Lena's voice cut faintly through the phone in the background, muttering something I couldn't catch. Her tone was sharp. Max continued. You canceled the rent transfers. Do you have any idea how that affects us? We have responsibilities. A lease. Bills. You can't just walk away like that. I can, I said quietly. And I have. There was a long silence. Then his voice turned hard. You're going to regret this, he said. You're not thinking clearly. You're going to end up alone, and when that happens, don't expect us to come running. The words stung, but I let them land. They were tools. Not truth. I already am alone, Max, I replied. And I've decided I would rather be alone than be used. He scoffed, an ugly sound. You're sick, Mom. You really are. Maybe they're right about old people. Goodbye, Max. I hung up before he could say more. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from the effort of staying firm. Setting boundaries feels like betrayal when you've spent decades saying yes. But it's not betrayal. It's self-rescue. The sweet trap. The second call came in the evening. This time, it was Lena. Her voice was sugary, warm, dipped in pretend concern. Renata, she chimed. How are you, dear? We were just thinking of you. I almost laughed. Yesterday I was unwell, confused, unsafe to manage my own life. Today, I was dear. I'm fine, I replied. I'm so glad, she continued. Listen, we were thinking. Let's start over. How about dinner tomorrow night? Just the three of us. A little celebration. Celebration. My eyebrows lifted. What are we celebrating? I asked. A tiny pause. Too tiny for most people to notice. But age teaches you how to hear what people aren't saying. Oh, she said quickly, the wedding, new beginnings, family, all that. Then she added, much more carefully. We're just a little short on rent this month. And you've always been so supportive. Maybe we can talk about it over dinner? There it was. Not a dinner to reconcile. Not a dinner to apologize. A transactional meeting. A baited hook, wrapped in affection. No, I said. Her voice sharpened instantly, like a knife hidden in velvet. No, she repeated. What do you mean no? I mean, I replied, I will not be paying your rent. And I will not be having dinner to be pressured about it. Silence. Then, slowly, the sweetness drained entirely from her tone. You're making a mistake, Renata, she said coldly. You're pushing away the only family you have. Family. Family isn't people who use you. Family is people who would rather lose money than lose you. Then maybe I don't have a family, I said softly. And maybe that's better than pretending I do. She made a disgusted sound. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. I almost dropped the phone. They had done for me? I closed my eyes for a moment, swallowed my anger, and replied. Please don't call again, Lena. If you or Max show up at my house without my permission, I'll call the police. You wouldn't dare. I could hear her smirk through the phone. I hung up. Then I unplugged the phone from the wall and turned off my mobile. The house fell into a deep, heavy silence. But this time, it felt less like loneliness. And more like protection. Meeting Eleanor. The next morning, I went out to my small front garden to water the roses. The petals were beginning to dry at the edges. Autumn was arriving, and with it, the slow end of the blooming season. My neighbor, Eleanor, was outside sweeping her walkway. We had exchanged hellos many times, but never more than that. She was in her late 60s, hair in a neat bun, wearing a cardigan the color of dried leaves. She paused, leaning on her broom. You look tired, Renata, she said gently. Is everything all right? It was the first time in days someone had asked how I was, without an agenda. I considered lying. Saying I'm fine the way people do when they are anything but. Instead, I heard myself say, no. Not really. She nodded as if she expected that answer. Tea, she offered. I make an excellent peppermint. It scares anxiety away for at least 15 minutes. I almost smiled. All right, I said. Inside her home, the air smelled of herbs and old books. She led me to a small kitchen table, already set with 2 cups, as if she had expected company all along. I didn't intend to tell her everything. But somehow, the story came out of me like water breaking through a dam. The wedding I wasn't invited to. The money. The notebook. The break-in. The lawyer. The threats. Eleanor listened without interrupting, her eyes calm, her hands wrapped around her mug like it held some kind of grounding. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she sighed. Ah, she said. So it's your turn. My turn? I asked, frowning. She nodded. You're not the first woman on this street whose children confused love with entitlement. You probably won't be the last. She stood, opened a cupboard, pulled out a shoebox, and placed it on the table. Inside were brochures, business cards, handwritten notes. What is all this? I asked. Evidence, she said simply. Resources. Stories. You're not alone, Renata. There's a support group at the community center. Mostly older women, a few men. All with the same problem. The same problem? She looked at me, eyes sad but steady. Children who think their parents' wallets are inheritance they can use early. The words hit me with both pain and comfort. Pain, because it meant my situation was real, and not some misunderstanding. Comfort, because it meant I wasn't singular. I wasn't a solitary failure. Come tonight, she said. 7 o'clock. No pressure. Just stories and coffee. I hesitated. Support groups always sounded like something from television. But then I thought of the empty house, the silent phone, the pressure of my own thoughts circling like vultures. I'll come, I said. The group. The community center was small, painted pale yellow, with a fading mural near the entrance. Inside, laughter and low conversation drifted from a room down the hallway. Eleanor walked beside me, a hand hovering near my elbow, not holding, not guiding, just there. We entered a room with a circle of chairs. About 12 people sat talking, older women, a few men, one woman with a cane, one with bright red lipstick applied slightly crooked. The woman in charge, a social worker named Greta, stood and smiled warmly. Everyone, this is Renata, she said. She's a neighbor of Eleanor's. I felt all their eyes on me, but not in a harsh way. It was the look of people who have cried the same tears. I sat down. One by one, they shared pieces of their stories. A son who moved into his mother's house and never left, refusing to pay bills. A daughter who used her father's credit card without asking, for years. A grandson who stole jewelry to sell it. Some were worse than mine. Some were less dramatic but just as painful. When it was my turn, I spoke. At first, my voice shook. But as I described the notebook, the unpaid invitations, the break-in, the papers on the table, my words became stronger. When I mentioned the sentence, only special people were invited. A few women winced, as if the words hit them too. Greta nodded thoughtfully. What you're describing is elder financial abuse, she said. It's more common than people think. And it's not just illegal. It's deeply cruel. Elder abuse. Hearing those two words together, attached to my life, made my stomach twist. But it also gave structure to what I was feeling. It transformed a mess of emotions into something identifiable, something that could be fought. After the session, Greta pulled me aside. You need a good lawyer, she said. Before they try something more formal. I thought of Attorney Krause and his file of papers, waiting for my signature. I don't know any lawyers, I admitted. You do now, said a voice behind me. A tall man in his 50s, with kind eyes and silver at his temples, extended a hand. I'm Mark Weber, he said. I help a lot of people from this group. If you'd like, we can talk about your situation. No pressure. For the second time in one day, a stranger offered me help with no price attached. I felt my throat tighten. Yes, I said. I would like that. We agreed to meet the next day at his office. For the first time since the wedding, I walked home feeling something almost like hope. The wellness check. Hope didn't last long. Trouble knows how to keep up. The next afternoon, as I was making soup, there was a loud knock at the door. Not the hesitant knock of a neighbor. A firm, official knock. I opened the door to find a woman in a gray blazer holding a clipboard, with a badge clipped to her pocket. "Mrs. Renata Richter?" she asked. "Yes," I said, heart speeding up. "I'm from Adult Protective Services," she said. "We received a call expressing concern about your mental health and ability to care for yourself. I'm here to conduct a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Even from here, I could hear Lena's voice in my head. "You're sick, Mom. You really are. You're not thinking clearly." Max and Lena had escalated. When manipulation failed, they called the authorities. "Who made the report?" I asked. "I can't disclose that," the woman replied gently. "But we do have to follow up on any report we receive." "May I come in?" For a moment, panic clawed at my chest. What if they declared me unfit? What if they believed I was confused? What if this was step one in a process to strip me of control? Then I remembered Mark. I remembered Greta's confident eyes. I remembered Eleanor's steady hand. "Yes," I said. "But before you ask any questions, I'd like to call my lawyer. Just so everything is clear." The social worker looked slightly surprised, but nodded. "That's your right," she said. I dialed Mark. He answered on the second ring. "Mark, this is Renata," I said. "Someone from Adult Protective Services is here for a wellness check." There was a pause. Then his voice turned firm. "Keep her there. I'm on my way." He arrived 15 minutes later, briefcase in hand, expression calm but serious. He greeted the social worker politely, introduced himself, and they both sat at the kitchen table. The social worker asked me questions. My age. My daily routine. My finances. My memory. I answered clearly, precisely. She asked if I cooked for myself. "I made soup today," I said. "Would you like some?" "It's better than the questions you're asking." She chuckled despite herself. She asked if I ever got lost, or forgot where I was. "No," I replied. "But sometimes I forget why I still forgive people who hurt me." "Does that count?" Her eyes softened. After nearly an hour, she closed her folder. "Mrs. Richter," she said, "you seem perfectly capable of managing your life. I see no indication of cognitive impairment. Whoever made that report may have had other motives." Mark leaned back slightly. "Would those motives include gaining control of her assets?" he asked. The social worker didn't answer directly, but her expression said enough. "If they contact you again," she told me, "you have the right to say no. And if anyone tries to force guardianship or financial control over you, contact your lawyer and us immediately." When she left, Mark stayed. He looked at me over clasped hands. "Renata," he said, "they are not going to stop. You need to be ready. I think they're preparing for something bigger." "Like what?" I asked. He didn't sugarcoat it. "A lawsuit. To declare you mentally incompetent." I felt the room tilt slightly. But this time, instead of collapsing inside, I straightened my back. "Then we fight," I said. He gave a small, approving nod. "Then we fight," he agreed. That night, as I lay in bed, the fear was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't the fear of being alone. It was the fear of a battle I never wanted to fight. But I wasn't fighting for money. I wasn't fighting for a house. I was fighting for my right to exist as a person, not a resource. And for that, I would not surrender. Not to my son. Not to his wife. Not to any court. The storm had arrived. But so had I. The days after the wellness check moved slowly, like the heavy footsteps of someone carrying a burden too large to name. But beneath that slowness, something else had begun to grow, a kind of tension, coiled and waiting, like a storm gathering behind mountains. Once someone tries to take your life from you, even in silence, every shadow looks like danger, every phone ring feels like an attack. But I was not the same woman I had been before. Not the woman who thought sacrifice was love. Not the woman who counted expenses like memories. Not the woman who waited quietly to be included in her own family. Something had changed. A quiet house, a loud mind. That week, I spent a lot of time sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the garden through the window. The roses were wilting, their petals falling in soft spirals onto the soil. I thought of the day Max planted them with Albert. He was 9. Albert held his hands, guiding him, teaching him to break the soil gently instead of stabbing at it. "You don't conquer Earth," he told Max. "You ask it to grow." I hadn't thought about that sentence in years. But now, it felt like a message from a time when life was simpler. When love was pure. When family was something built together, not taken apart with legal documents. Preparing for war. Mark called the day after the wellness check. "They've filed," he said. My stomach dropped. Filed what? A petition for guardianship. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent, and that your finances and property need to be placed under the care of your son. A coldness spread through me. "They told the court you are unable to manage your daily life," he continued. "That you're confused. That you might be a danger to yourself." My hands shook, not from fear, from anger. "They're lying," I whispered. "Yes," he said, his tone calm. "And we're going to prove it." I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of what was happening. "They want everything," I said. "No," Mark replied. "They want control." "There's a difference." "What do we do?" "We build a case," he said. "We gather proof of your independence, your mental clarity. We bring witnesses. We document their behavior. And we expose their motives." "What motives?" He didn't hesitate. "Money." The word felt filthy on my tongue. "The evaluations." A week later, I underwent a full cognitive and psychiatric evaluation. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to walk into that courtroom with truth written on paper. The psychologist was a gentle woman with silver streaks in her hair and eyes that looked like she had listened to a lifetime of pain. She asked me questions about my childhood. About Albert. About Max. About my finances. My habits. My memory. My fears. She asked me to recall lists of words, draw shapes, interpret stories. Tasks that, to a proud woman, could feel insulting, but I did them without hesitation. Because I was not ashamed of my mind. When we finished, she put down her pen and smiled softly. "Mrs. Richter," she said, "your cognitive health is excellent. You are sharper than most people 10 years younger. I see no signs of impairment, confusion, or decline." A strange feeling washed through me. Relief, mixed with something else. Pride. I was proud of my mind, for surviving years of silence, loss, and giving. She handed me the report. "Use this," she said gently. "Protect yourself." I folded it carefully, like a precious photograph, and placed it into my bag. Max's attempts. Max called almost every day after the filing. Not to talk. To pressure. Sometimes he was angry. Sometimes he pretended to be loving. Sometimes he tried guilt. The conversations blurred together, but they all had the same rhythm. "Mom, what if something happens to you?" "Mom, we're just trying to help." "Mom, you don't understand how hard this is for us." "Mom, you're ruining our chances." "Mom, think about the future." Never, "Mom, I'm sorry." Not once. One evening, after days of calls I refused to answer, he left a long voice message. "Mom, you're hurting us. You've always supported me, always believed in me. Why are you listening to strangers instead of your own family? Why are you making me look bad in front of Lena's parents? We told them we'd have financial stability. Now you want to embarrass us? Is this revenge? Are you doing this because you weren't invited to the wedding? That's childish. Grow up. Grow up." I laughed. A strange, hollow laugh that came from a place deep in my ribs, where disappointment lived. I had raised this man. I had fed him, clothed him, comforted him, protected him. And now he was telling me to grow up. I deleted the message. Then I turned off the phone. Peace is sometimes just the absence of noise. Lena's strategy. Lena didn't call. She sent messages instead. Short, pointed, falsely sweet. "Hey, hope you're well. Any chance we could talk about rent? The legal stuff is just a misunderstanding. We don't want to fight." Then, when I didn't respond, "You're being dramatic. We've done nothing but love you." Then, less sugar. "You will lose. Courts don't let old people manage money alone. It's for your own good." Then, "After everything we did for you." That one broke something inside me. A small thread of restraint. I picked up the phone, typed one sentence, and sent it. "You will never speak for me again." Her reply came fast. "You ungrateful old." I blocked her. The silence afterward was beautiful. Gathering witnesses. Mark met me at the community center one afternoon, carrying a folder so thick it looked like a book. "We need character witnesses," he said. "People who can speak to your independence, your clarity, your abilities." I looked around the room. Eleanor raised her hand first. "I'll speak," she said. Then a man named Joseph, who I barely knew, added. "She plans the church charity drives. She calculates the budgets. She's smarter than all of us." A woman named Bridget added. "She helped me with medication schedules for my husband. She caught a dosage error that the nurse missed." Greta, the social worker, said. "I've worked with her. She's not impaired. She's meticulous." It felt surreal. People I had barely known a month ago were willing to stand in a courtroom for me. Not because they owed me anything. Not because they wanted something. But because they recognized injustice. Sometimes, family isn't blood. Sometimes family is a room of strangers who share your wounds. The evidence against me. Mark prepared me for the other side. "Max and Lena will present evidence," he said. "They will bring people who claim you are confused, unstable, impulsive." "How?" I asked. By manipulating context. And they did. The day before the hearing, Mark received documents from the opposing lawyers. Inside were statements. A pharmacist claiming I once forgot to pick up a prescription. A neighbor claiming I had knocked on her door late at night confused about the date. A bank teller saying I asked the same question twice. Small things. Normal things. Human things. Twisted into a narrative. Every mistake becomes a symptom. Every forgetfulness becomes a warning sign. Every moment of weakness becomes a weapon. Mark flipped through the papers, carefully. They are building a case based on fragments, he said. We will answer with facts. He held up the cognitive evaluation. This is our strongest defense. Then he looked at me, eyes steady. Are you ready to face them in court? I thought about Albert, about the promises I made to a grieving boy, about the money, the notebook, the wedding dress hanging in my closet. Then I said, yes. Not because I wanted a fight, but because I wanted to end it. The night before court. That night, I didn't sleep much. The house felt both too big and too small. I walked through the rooms like they were memories. The living room where Max took his first steps. The hallway where he drew on the walls with crayons. The kitchen where I taught him to cook eggs. The stairs where he fell and broke his arm. The bedroom where Albert died. Every corner held a story. Every story felt like it belonged to another life. A life where love was simple. Where help was accepted with gratitude. Where family meant something. I sat in my armchair, wrapped in a knitted blanket, and watched the sky lighten through the windows. As the sun rose, quietly, beautifully, spilling gold across the room, I made a promise to myself. Tomorrow, I will walk into that courtroom not as a victim, but as a woman reclaiming her life. Whatever the judge decided, whatever Max said, whatever Lena attempted, I would stand. Because dignity is not given. At the trial. I had never been inside a courtroom before. On television, courtrooms always looked dramatic, polished wood, powerful speeches, sudden outbursts. In real life, it felt quieter, heavier. Like a church where the God everyone worships is paper. Documents. Evidence. Signatures. Lives, turned into folders. The building itself was old stone, with steps that seemed taller than necessary. Eleanor walked beside me, one hand lightly touching my arm. Mark strode a little ahead, briefcase in hand, already in battle mode. Inside, the courtroom was cool and almost too bright. Wooden benches, a raised bench for the judge, flags, the echo of shoes on the floor. A few strangers sat scattered in the back, people waiting for their own cases, lives tangled in different ways. And there they were. Max and Lena. Sitting at the other table with their lawyer, Attorney Krause. Max wore a suit that didn't quite fit right, shoulders tense, jaw clenched. Lena looked perfect, as always, hairstyled, makeup flawless, eyes fixed ahead as if she were the wounded party in all this. For a moment, Max looked at me. I searched his face for something, regret, hesitation, love. All I saw was resentment. Opening. The judge entered, an older woman with gray hair pulled back into a bun. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the room, taking in everything. All rise, the clerk said. We stood. Then sat. The judge looked at the documents in front of her. This is the matter of Richter versus Richter, she said. A petition for guardianship over the person and estate of Renata Richter, brought by her son, Max Richter. Hearing my name like that, as if I were a file instead of a person, made my skin prickle. "Counsel, are you ready to proceed?" the judge asked. Attorney Kraus stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Mark stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Very well," the judge said. "Mr. Kraus, you may begin." Their story. Kraus walked to the center of the room, performing concern. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a case about a loving son trying to protect his aging mother." I nearly laughed. He continued, voice smooth. "Mrs. Richter is 71. In recent months, her behavior has become erratic. She has suddenly cut off support she has always provided her son and his wife. She has made impulsive financial decisions, refused reasonable help, and exhibited signs of confusion." He gestured to Max. "My client is simply asking the court for the ability to ensure that his mother is safe, cared for, and protected from her own declining judgment." Declining. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Then he called his first witness. The pharmacist. It was the pharmacist from the little shop near my house. A kind woman, always polite, now suddenly nervous as she took the stand. "Do you know Mrs. Richter?" Kraus asked. "Yes," she said. "She's been coming for years." "In your professional opinion," he began, "have you noticed any changes in her behavior recently?" She shifted slightly. "There was one time when she forgot she had already picked up a prescription." The pharmacist. It was the pharmacist from the little shop near my house. A kind woman, always polite, now suddenly nervous as she took the stand. "Do you know Mrs. Richter?" Kraus asked. "Yes," she said. "She's been coming for years." "In your professional opinion," he began, "have you noticed any changes in her behavior recently?" She shifted slightly. "There was one time when she forgot she had already picked up a prescription." "When was this?" he asked. "Maybe 6 months ago," she said. "She came in, asked for her medication, but it had already been collected the day before." "And did she seem confused?" "She seemed embarrassed," the pharmacist answered. "But I wrote a note about it, just in case." Kraus nodded gravely. No further questions. Mark stood. "Just a few questions, Your Honor," he said. He approached the witness with a gentle expression. "Ma'am, you said you've known Mrs. Richter for years. Has she ever been rude or aggressive?" "No," the pharmacist said. "Always polite." "Does she manage her own prescriptions?" "Yes," she replied. "She always comes herself." "And in all those years, how many times has she forgotten a pickup?" She hesitated. "That one time." "So, one mistake in years?" "Yes." Mark smiled softly. "In your experience as a pharmacist, is it unusual for a person, at any age, to occasionally forget something?" "No," she admitted. "It happens all the time." "Thank you," Mark said. No further questions. The pharmacist looked almost relieved as she stepped down. The neighbor. Next, they called a neighbor, a woman from 2 houses down. Someone I had never been close to, but always kept things polite with. "Do you know Mrs. Richter?" Kraus asked. "Yes," the neighbor answered. "We live on the same street." "Have you ever seen behavior from her that concerned you?" She nodded too eagerly. "One night, she knocked on my door and asked what day it was. It was late, maybe 11. She looked confused." "And how did that make you feel?" "Worried," she said, though her tone sounded more like gossip. No further questions, Kraus said. Mark walked up slowly. "What is your name?" he asked. "Ulrika," she replied. "Ulrika," he said, "do you recall what night that was?" She frowned, thinking. "I don't remember exactly." "Winter? Summer?" he pressed. "Winter, I think. It was dark, and I remember the cold." "Do you remember," Mark said calmly, "if there had been a power outage that day?" She blinked. "Possibly. I'm not sure." "Let me help," Mark said, pulling a paper from his folder. "This is a notice from the electric company about an outage last December, on your street, between 8 p.m. and midnight. The same night Mrs. Richter came to your door." He turned slightly to the judge. "Mrs. Richter tells me she came to ask whether the power was out just on her side, or the whole street, because her clock had reset and she wasn't sure if it was past midnight. Is that correct?" Ulrika flushed. "I don't remember exactly." "But you do remember she recognized you, knew where she was, and asked a normal question?" "Yes," she admitted quietly. "So she wasn't wandering the street in confusion?" "No." "Thank you," Mark said. "No further questions. Max testifies." Then it was Max's turn. "Seeing your own child walk to the witness stand to testify against you is a pain I would not wish on anyone." He swore in, then sat, trying to look distressed. "Max," Kraus said gently, "can you describe your relationship with your mother?" "She was always protective," Max began. "She helped me a lot. Especially after my dad died. But lately, something's changed." "How so?" "She's become paranoid," he said. "She thinks people are using her." She cut off help suddenly. "She accused me and my wife of trying to steal from her. She ripped up legal documents. She's isolating from family and listening to strangers instead. It's not like her." "Do you love your mother?" Kraus asked. "Of course," Max said quickly. "That's why I'm doing this. I'm scared she'll lose everything. Or hurt herself. Someone has to step in." "Thank you," Kraus said. No further questions. Mark stood slowly. "Mr. Richter," he began, "how old are you?" 35. "And do you work?" Max shifted. "I do freelance," he said. "It's not always stable." "So your mother's financial support has been important?" "For a while, yes," he admitted. "But it was mutual. She wanted to help." "For how long did she pay your rent?" 3 years, he said reluctantly. "How much per month?" 500. "And she also bought furniture?" "Groceries. Helped with car repairs." "Paid for your wife's wedding dress?" "Yes," he muttered. "And did you ever pay her back?" He looked annoyed. "She never asked." "That wasn't my question," Mark said calmly. "Did you ever offer to pay her back?" Silence. "No." Mark nodded. "Did your mother know about your wedding date?" Max hesitated. "We decided last minute." "And did you invite her?" He exhaled sharply. "We wanted a small ceremony. Just close friends." "Closer than your only surviving parent?" Mark asked. Max's jaw tightened. "It was complicated." "Is it true," Mark continued, "that your wife told her she wasn't invited because only special people were?" Kraus objected. "Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation." "I'll rephrase," Mark said. "Did your wife say that to your mother?" Max swallowed. I don't know. Maybe. She jokes sometimes. A joke, Mark repeated. A joke about who is special enough to attend her own son's wedding. Max glanced at Lena. She stared at the table. No further questions, Mark said. Lena testifies. When Lena took the stand, she played the victim. I never meant to hurt her, she said, voice trembling. I thought the wedding would be stressful for her. And Max said their relationship was complicated. She painted herself as a caring daughter-in-law, misunderstood and unappreciated. We only asked for power of attorney because we were afraid, she said. We didn't want anyone to take advantage of her. Mark approached her with a politeness so sharp it was almost a blade. Mrs. Richter, he said, who pays your rent now? She shifted. We're between jobs. That wasn't my question. Her son's name is on the lease, she said defensively. And until recently, who was paying that rent? She hesitated. His mother. Did you ever ask her if she was comfortable doing that indefinitely? No, Lena replied. She never complained. Did you go to her house late at night with a lawyer and ask for full control of her finances? We went at a reasonable time, she protested. Past midnight, Mark said. With pre-drafted documents. Without prior notice. Is that your idea of reasonable? She was confused, Lena said. We were trying to help. Is that why you told her she wasn't invited to your wedding because only special people were? He asked. Lena's face flushed. I didn't mean it like that. It was a joke. Did she laugh? Mark asked. Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. No. No further questions. My turn. Finally, it was my turn to take the stand. My knees felt weak as I walked, but my spine stayed straight. I swore in, sat, and folded my hands in my lap. Mrs. Richter, Kraus began, do you deny that you stopped financial support suddenly to your son? No, I said. I stopped. It was not sudden to me. It was delayed by years. Why? Because I realized, I said calmly, that love had been replaced by expectation. He frowned. Have you ever felt confused about dates, money, or appointments? Yes, I said. Like every human being who has ever lived. A few people in the courtroom smiled faintly. Did you rip up power of attorney documents presented by your son? Yes. Why? Because they were a trap, I replied. He did not bring them to protect me. He brought them to control me. No further questions, Kraus said tersely. Mark stepped forward. Mrs. Richter, he said gently, how do you manage your daily life? I cook. I clean. I shop. I manage my bank accounts. I attend group meetings. I volunteer sometimes. Who handles your medications? He asked. I do. I take them according to the schedule prescribed. I have never overdosed or missed more than a dose or two in years. And your finances? I know exactly how much I have in savings, I said. How much my monthly bills are. I can tell you the average of my grocery bills for the last 6 months. He smiled slightly. Do you have any professional assessment of your mental state? Yes, I said, reaching for my bag. A full evaluation from a licensed psychologist. Mark took the paper, held it up. Your Honor, this evaluation states that Mrs. Richter shows no signs of cognitive impairment, has excellent memory, and is fully capable of managing her life. The judge scanned it, her eyes moving quickly. Mark looked back at me. Why did you stop paying your son's rent? Because, I said, my voice steady, I realized I was not helping him grow. I was helping him stay weak. And because when the money stopped, the affection stopped too. That is not love. That is a transaction. And why did you not attend his wedding? I wasn't invited. He paused. How did you feel when you learned that? A lump rose in my throat, but I forced the words through it. I felt erased, I said. Like I was good enough to fund their life, but not good enough to be part of it. The courtroom was quiet. Mark nodded. No further questions, Your Honor. As I stepped down from the stand, my legs trembled, but something else inside me felt stronger than it had in years. We had told the truth. Laid it bare in front of strangers. Let it stand beside their lies and breathe. Now, all that remained was judgment. The judge looked down at her notes, then at us. This court will reconvene tomorrow, she said. At that time, I will deliver my decision. The gavel struck once. Court is adjourned. As we walked out of the courtroom, past Max and Lena, past their cold stares and tight jaws, I felt something remarkable. I was not afraid anymore. Whatever the judge said tomorrow, something important had already happened. I had reclaimed my voice. And that is where real freedom begins. The next morning, the courtroom felt different. Not quieter, clearer. As if everyone in that room already sensed the truth, even before the judge spoke it. Max and Lena sat with stiff backs, their lawyer whispering desperately. They looked smaller than yesterday, not in size, but in certainty. Their confidence had cracks now. Their story had holes. I sat next to Mark, hands folded, eyes steady. The judge entered, and silence fell. She didn't speak dramatically. She wasn't the type. Her voice was simple, precise, each word sharp like a clean blade. The judge's decision. I have reviewed the evidence, she began. The witness testimony, the psychological evaluation, and the financial history. She paused, looking at Max first. It is clear to this court that Mrs. Richter is fully competent. There is no medical basis to remove her rights. Lena's face froze. Max blinked, mouth opening slightly. The judge continued. What this case truly reflects is financial dependency, not parental incapacity. She looked directly at Max now, not unkindly, but without softness. At 35 years old, you should not rely on your 71-year-old mother to fund your life. It is not her obligation to pay your rent. Nor is it her responsibility to provide for you in adulthood. Max swallowed hard. The judge turned to Lena. And Mrs. Richter was excluded from your wedding, a deeply hurtful act considering her contributions. Your attempt to claim guardianship the moment she stopped paying raises serious concerns about your motives. Lena looked away. Then the judge said the words that closed the entire story. The petition is dismissed. In addition, this court finds that the attempt to gain power of attorney was motivated by financial interest, not concern. Mrs. Richter retains full control of her finances, property, and life. The gavel struck once. Case closed. After the verdict. It was over. Just like that, a few sentences, a wooden sound, and the weight of 3 years lifted off my chest. Max stood but didn't look at me. His face was red, jaw tight, shame mixing with anger. Lena whispered to him furiously, but her words didn't reach me. Their voices had become distant, like noise from another room. I didn't go to them. They didn't approach me. There was nothing left to say. Some endings don't need a final conversation. Silence can be more honest than apologies forced under pressure. Mark touched my arm gently. "It's done," he said. And I realized something surprising. I wasn't crying. Not joy, not pain, just clarity. A new chapter. In the weeks after the trial, I made decisions quickly, decisions I had postponed for years. I sold the house. The rooms felt lighter once empty, as if the walls were exhaling after holding memories for too long. I donated half my savings to charities that help women like me, women who loved too much and received too little. The rest became freedom. I booked a train ticket across Europe, something I had dreamed of but never dared to do. Not because I couldn't, but because I waited for someone to come with me. Now, I didn't need permission. I visited gardens in Italy, museums in France, quiet villages where nobody knew my name, and nobody expected anything from me except a smile. I wrote postcards to Eleanor and the group, telling them about new places and new peace. I did not write to Max. Not out of anger, but because sometimes distance is the only way love can survive, small, quiet, without demands. The final message. Once, I believed that being a mother meant giving everything, time, money, health, dreams, until nothing was left. I believed that if I poured enough love into my child, that love would return to me. It didn't. And that was not failure. That was simply reality. People love in different ways, and sometimes not at all. But here is what I learned. Love without respect is not love. It is dependency. And dependency is often mistaken for affection. When my money stopped, so did their kindness. That was not loss, it was revelation. I didn't lose a son. I lost an illusion. And in its place, I found something far more precious. Myself. At 71, I finally understood. Family is not defined by blood, or by wedding invitations, or by shared names. Family is defined by respect, gratitude, and presence. Anyone can share your DNA. Very few will stand beside you when the money ends. Now, when I wake in new cities and taste my first cup of coffee while watching strangers live their lives, I smile to myself and think, I did not win a case. I won my freedom. And for the first time in decades. That is enough.